Welcome to the Mental Health Boot Camp Podcast.
Hello.
This is the podcast where four therapists, three of us Canadian, one of us American, serve you cutting-edge mental health knowledge. I'm Dr. Ryan Howes, a psychologist in Pasadena, California.
And I'm Dr. Brooke Lewis, a registered clinical counselor from Vancouver, Canada.
And I'm Joanna Boyd, also a registered clinical counselor from Vancouver, Canada.
I'm Chris Boyd, also a registered clinical counselor from Vancouver.
Right on. Welcome to you guys. We're coming at you at this time during that week between Christmas / Hanukkah / Kwanzaa and New Year's. So we're just a couple days before New Year's Eve here, bringing 2020 to a close, which I'm sure brings up a lot of sadness for a lot of people, right?
What a year, eh? What a year.
Yeah, what a year.
Yeah. Typically around this time, it's kind of nice to, reflect on the previous year and think of goals for the year coming up. And never, ever would I have thought that we would have a year like we just had,
Absolutely.
Still wishing for the pandemic to be done, right? Like we're still, who knows what next year is going to hold, but this year sure put us through it. So
It did put us through it. It continues to put us through it. It's weird to be at the year end here, at least in California. It's as bad as it's ever been. We're at our worst totals and numbers ever. And, a lot of people thought, I remember back in the summertime, people kind of joking around, oh, we'll be back by Christmas at least, or by New Year's, right? Yeah, well, not so much.
Yeah.
Yes, but still, there are pockets of joy, and I hope everyone had some good moments in the last week. Did you guys are Christmas celebrators? Any positive moments that you experienced or favorite moments from the last week?
you know what? I think it looks different for our family, Chris and I's family here, but I fortunately got to kind of tack on to my parents' little bubble there for Christmas, so that was nice. And then we got to kind of visit with, Chris and our other siblings and their families, and over Zoom, and we still made the most of it. I think it was still had lots of connection time, which was great, and I think it was acknowledged, it's a weird year, but it's still really nice in a lot of ways. And so I think it wasn't all, oh, I wish it were different. I think it was made the most of. At least that's how I think of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so for our family, of course, we can meet together. My parents did a remarkable job preparing dinner for everybody and dropping off the meals to to my place as well as my siblings' places too. So that was fantastic. A lot of time went into it. The rice pudding, we talked about that in an earlier podcast. Rice pudding tradition, a full dinner, wine, breakfast for the next day. It was pretty amazing.
Wow.
Another highlight was our fellow boot camper there, Brooke, dressed up in an Olaf costume and walked around the neighborhood. I tagged along to make sure that nothing happened to her. And I got to see all the joy on people's faces.
I couldn't see out the mesh.
Yeah, probably hundreds of people drove by or walked by, and just instant laughter and smiles. So that was
some fear, some fright. There was a small child that was like intrigued, but then frightened all at the same time.
Nice.
But she did a fantastic job spreading Christmas cheer, and I got to see it firsthand. So that was definitely a highlight.
So this was Olaf from the movie Frozen, not like someone's creepy uncle or something, right?
It was actually the creepy uncle. We have a different Olaf up here in Canada.
Oh, you do? Oh, the differences just keep amazing me. My goodness.
It's actually a clown.
It's a clown with a single
Olaf,
red
the
balloon.
Canadian clown.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Yes. Well, yeah, I've wondered oftentimes. I haven't been up there for the holidays. Actually, wait, what did I say? I was in Montreal for New Year's Eve 2 years ago, which was really cool. But what do you guys, I mean, New Year's, of course, is going to look weird for everybody this year. We're not going to be going to parties and stuff like that. But do you guys watch like the New York ball drop and that sort of thing, like we do here? What happens what's customary on New Year's Eve for you guys?
Typically a lame house party.
Hmm. Okay, nice.
You know, everyone's like, sweet, we're gonna, I think people like the idea of New Year's up here, but nobody actually likes New Year's up here. If that makes any sense. Like it's a ritual to get together and have people or a house party or whatever, but it's never Christmas Eve.
Yeah. I feel that the more time I put into planning something, or the bigger the plan is, the more I'm disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's usually just meeting up with close friends, and family members sometimes too. That's when it's the most fun. But yes, we do watch the New York live.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ball dropping there. Yeah, that's the big one. We don't have anything close to that up here.
Okay.
In terms of New Year's Rockin' Eve,
Well, hard to beat that, Dick Clark to Ryan Seacrest to Anderson Cooper, whoever's doing it that night. Lots of fun. You guys are welcome to it. Glad you can enjoy it. That's good. I used to throw these New Year's Eve parties. Now I'm remembering, where I would get a bunch of like cheap champagne flutes,
Mm-hmm.
like from maybe a thrift store or from IKEA or somewhere where they're just like 50 cents a piece, something like that. And then at midnight, put champagne in the glasses, and every person would have to say like a resolution for their year, and then take a drink and throw the glass into the fireplace.
Whoa!
Yeah.
With the drink inside?
Well, you did drink. It was just a little sip in there. You drink the glass, and you'd throw the glass in the fireplace. And I'd spend most of the next day picking glass out of my fireplace.
That's bold.
It was fun.
That's great.
I was very fortunate to spend Christmas or New Year's Eve 2019 in Morocco. And one of the things that was encouraged of us there, just by the group I was with, is we reflected kind of on maybe something from the past year that we, a lesson learned type thing, as well as something, but it was kind of something for us to let go. And we were able to kind of put that in the fire and kind of let go of that, as well as kind of talk about hopes we had for the next year. So it's kind of like a nice little, let's end this year, look back and reflect, and then as well as kind of look forward. So it's kind of a nice little thing, which anyone could do, just journaling themselves. But
so would you actually put something in the fire, or you just kind of imagining? Oh, you would?
No,
okay.
We did.
Oh, yeah.
And we went outside and we're able to kind of watch it burn.
Oh, cool. I like that.
It's a good thing you didn't burn those headphones, Annie.
Oh man, I know. Wearing some retro Walkman headphones right now. But but anyways, I think New Year's is pretty quiet my way. I think I've gone to house parties and sometimes I've just had one friend over and just very quiet. I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny, at midnight, historically, we would call each other. So Joanna and I and our siblings and parents. And usually my parents are at a party with used to be their poker buddies, and lots of screaming and yelling in the background. When you call Joanna, you can hear a pin drop in the background. It's like, hello, how's your night going?
Like,
a lot of hoot and hollering.
Oh man, no, I know our parents are usually more partying, but it's pretty funny. Yeah.
They're the party animals. That's great.
But yeah, more so than me. Yeah, pretty quiet my end usually, but yeah.
Nice. How about you, Brooke?
Nice.
Any memories or traditions for you?
No, really just not a big New Year's-y. I think in my younger years, it was, you try to find the right thing that you like to do to enjoy New Year's. So you try all the things, whether it's a house party or going to a club or a nice dinner or staying at home But I think as I've gotten older, I'm like, you know what, this just isn't my thing. And the smaller, more intimate, the better. One New Year's, I hung out with Joanna, and that was like tons of fun. It was a very small gathering, but we played like cards, and there was no expectation. Like nobody was dressed up. We were there having snacks and playing cards, and it was great.
Well, this will be a great New Year's for you then.
Yeah, exactly.
No expectations, no pressure. Do whatever you want.
No pressure. Exactly.
That's cool.
Oh, there was just a fun little thing I thought about, because last year I spent a New Year's with a friend, and we went to a play, actually, Sound of Music. But then we ended up at a friend of hers, with him and her dad, his dad. And it was like, they lived across the street from a graveyard. But we ended up like all taking pots and pans. And what's the, I can't say it. It's not a
vuvuzela.
The ones that are played at like soccer games, the vuvuzela or something like the big horns.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, and we just paraded through the cemetery, making noise
at midnight.
Yeah, after fireworks were going off, and we were just on our little like pots and pans and the horn, and just did a little parade and right back to the house. It was so random, and went back and then listened to Rod Stewart's Auld Lang Syne. It was great. It was very random and lovely. It was a lot of fun, lots of laughs. So
wow.
Yeah.
And not morbid. You'd think it would be like, why are you in a cemetery? It just was right there. Just decided to kind of do a little march through, and
okay.
Very respectfully, but it was great. A lot of fun.
Wow. Sheesh. That sounds festive and a little creepy, but festive.
Yeah. No.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
Yeah. Was Olaf there with you?
No,
Olaf the clown? No.
No. Oh my gosh. No. No.
Not that creepy.
Yeah.
Well, we're here to talk about mental health. So let's have our final mental health message, question, topic for 2020. And someone's got the topic, and you're going to ambush the rest of us with it. We don't know what it is yet. I'm guessing it's you, Brooke. You're holding up your phone.
I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Throw it on over the border. I'll catch it.
It's coming your way.
Oh, got it. Wow.
Woo!
That was quick. Okay.
Yeah.
Here it is. Reflection time. Looking back on 2020, what themes did you notice in your clients, positive and negative? What were common challenges? What were ways clients persevered? And last, what do you think will help people move through the next few months? Woo! What themes did you notice in your clients, positive and negative, common challenges, and how did clients persevere? This is good stuff.
Yeah, well, we're pretty, we're sitting here, we're reflecting on our year. I'm sure we're all kind of reflecting. I thought it would be interesting maybe for some of the listeners kind of get that inside scoop. I mean, we all work with people. We're on the ground working with it, but we also have an education to step back and kind of see a bigger picture. And I don't know, I thought it might be an interesting topic to discuss, right? Like when we look back, what were the themes? And
definitely. Should we start out with the negative or the hardships? Or should we just
whatever you want.
Taking Ryan's roll away there, eh, Joe? Just jumping right in there, moderating our call. That's good.
I have no. Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Go for it.
Well,
you want to do the negatives?
Oh well, yeah. I think one thing that jumps out for me would be, well, I guess I might go back and forth between positives and negatives a little bit, but
that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I take away whatever little boundaries I was supposed to put on there. But I think there's a lot of, especially when the pandemic first hit, a lot of fear or kind of some worries and uncertainty that came up. I think for me, clients kind of took a bit of time before coming back to counseling to kind of figure things out a little bit, or try to find some, figure out what pandemic life is going to look like. But some anxiety definitely heightened, I noticed in clients, and a lot of loss, grief, loss, anxiety. As the pandemic rolled on, there's just really feeling low, a lot of lack of motivation. It's definitely roller coastered through from the beginning to now. I think there's definitely themes from start to middle to now, I think. But
yeah.
It's interesting though, because it has been a bit of a juxtaposition or back and forth, right? I think sometimes we've seen the best out of people, and sometimes we've seen the worst out of people over this past year. Like, it's really brought certain behaviors to light. So yeah, I totally agree in terms of grief and anxiety and sadness. I think those have been very common for sure. Anger. I know there's been a lot of anger and pushback up at where we live, with a lot of the restrictions and not being able to see family at Christmas. So I know that's been a big theme. So at the beginning of the pandemic, it was okay, we're all in this together. And then as it kind of went on, people were kind of losing steam there a bit. And when dealing with something this extreme, sometimes people start to go down the rabbit hole and start to find more information that feeds that anger, or that I don't want to say ignorance, but that confusion, I guess.
Yes, I will second all of that. And actually, I think I'll step back a minute and say, I actually think that I'm going to remember this time as the year of emotion. I think a lot of times with my clients in the past, it's been more about, well, let me figure something out, or I'm trying to understand something, and I'm not trying, I need to sort through some cognitive problem. But this year, I think all of the emotions you guys have mentioned have taken, not just been present, but have taken over at times. And that's what I think I've been working with clients a lot on this year. It's like, I'm feeling, early on, I'm feeling so much fear, so much anxiety. How do I handle this? I don't know what to do about this, in the summertime down here, especially with a lot of the racial injustice and the police riots, all that kind of stuff, people feeling fear and anger about that. And it's just like every emotion just cranked up 50% more than usual, and oftentimes beyond their normal abilities to tolerate it or manage it. And it just, you couldn't avoid it. That's the other part. You couldn't like distract yourself with other things in life and all of that. It's just sitting right there in front of you, and you're sitting at home, just not able to avoid any of that stuff. So I really do think that emotions have been big. Managing them or mismanaging them. So there's the negative side, right? Certainly folks who are who've turned to substances a lot more, or some unhealthy coping mechanisms, and some who've turned to really healthy ones as well, taking that time to do a lot more exercise, or be even more social than they were before in some distance safe ways, and all of that stuff, or journal, or different things like that. So yeah, I really think that the virus and the isolation has been certainly pushing people more into their feelings, and that's includes a lot of people who maybe were not so in touch with feelings before.
Yeah. It's also interesting too, for those people that we wouldn't typically see in our counseling offices, were starting to pop up there when things became challenging, because they were kind of forced, or these boundaries were put in, and they were had to disengage from this balanced life that they're engaging in, right? So that was really rough. So we're seeing from my experience, a cohort or a group of clients that we wouldn't typically see. And then maybe a bit of relief there sometimes for those clients who have been isolating, or maybe having a tough time coping with those emotions that you're speaking of, Ryan. You felt a bit of relief at first, when everyone else was in the same boat as them.
Yeah, that was kind of neat. I remember a client early on saying something like feeling like they had a superpower because they'd been working on anxiety management for years, and now all of their friends were coming to them saying, how do I handle my anxiety? Like, oh, I've got all these tools and tricks to help out with that. So now it can be of service.
It's almost like those people who are, some of the people who are very social or really depend on that social connection, they're the ones who are really having a tough time. And then more the introverts are people who really valued that quiet, slower pace, were like, hey, this is just filling me up, right? So you almost, is interesting to see who was suffering a bit more. And sometimes you were surprised. Like, there were some people who were very anxious going into the pandemic, and were actually, their anxiety did not go up. But then you would have the people who it would go, it would increase in the fear of then getting sick, or it was just such a variety. I don't know.
I agree. Yeah, it was interesting to see throughout the waves of it, the different, like what clients were bringing to the table, them as themselves, just them and their personalities, and what was showing up when. Because I agree, Joanna and Ryan, like many clients, when it first kicked in, high anxiety clients felt relief that like
Yeah.
everyone gets it, everyone's on the same page now. And so they kind of were able to manage it a bit until for us up here, a lot of restrictions not lifted, but you were able to do more. Everything kind of kicked back online like in May, mid-May, end of May. So businesses started to open up again. You're expected maybe to work more, people could go to restaurants, you know, these different things. So then those clients noticed a huge increase in mood disorders. What I noticed, anxiety and depression, as they were expected to get back to normal life.
Oh, interesting.
But for that first few months, Joanna, I agree, there were clients coming in who were typically like extroverted, but maybe the busyness and the extroversion was actually masking some other things going on for them, or those were their coping strategies that they couldn't do anymore. They couldn't go to the gym and they couldn't see people and they couldn't do these things. So now they were struggling. And then when everything opened up, they were getting better, but it swung the other way for people with different traits. Yeah.
As a side note, maybe I've mentioned this already here before, but I've found it interesting how some people maybe had sort of mislabeled themselves pre-pandemic as an introvert or an extrovert, right? Some people were like, "Oh, I'm outgoing. I love people. I want to be with people all the time." And then pandemic hits and quarantining hits, and they're like, "Wow, it's really nice to be at home and not have to go out." Like that was really exhausting, actually, for me. And some folks who really thought of themselves as being so introverted are like, "I need people. Give me more time with people. What can I do to get with people?" So, you know, not everybody, but it's just interesting how this kind of forced a lot of people to realize more about themselves, about their traits and their needs than previously.
Absolutely.
It's almost like when that choice is taken away, right? You can be introverted and have your space, but when you want to go see people, you can. But the pandemic took that choice away from you, really. So it's almost, anyways.
We're also very habitual. Like we live our lives and get into routines and we have these patterns. And then this thing happens and they were like, "Oh wow, okay, well I can't do that anymore." So I think it kind of rocked a lot of people to their core. And they kind of had to recreate things. And I think it highlighted some, maybe for some people, these underlying coping mechanisms that Ryan talked about that maybe are not the best for them, that needed to be addressed, but also led to you know, some really positive, fantastic ways of coping as well. So people maybe spending time on things they wouldn't typically spend time on, for instance, creative outlets or creative ways to connect and getting outside for walking or exercising or whatever that might be.
I've definitely noticed heavier things come up, whether it's anxiety or depression or just like hitting like kind of that loss of hope, almost like learned helplessness, heaviness kind of since November in my clients. So that's like after time change, it starts to get dark here. Like first week in November, sun was setting maybe at 5. So like right now the sun sets at, I don't know, 4:07 or something like that. And it's raining all the time and it's dark. And normally there's a lot of seasonal affective anyway. For listeners, seasonal affective disorder is depression-like symptoms through the winter months when it's dark. And so that's pretty typical around here. But I feel like this year was heavier. There was almost like this realization of like, we're still in this sucks and I'm limited and I don't know what I can do. And it's been very heavy. And it came November.
And it came with those restrictions, right? We had more restrictions up here in BC for, just it kind of, we went back in time a little bit. And so I think there was definitely that the lack of motivation, that helplessness to talk about, Brooke. And it's a bit harder. It seemed a bit of it's like a new season of COVID. This is our first time going through fall, winter with it. And what does that bring?
So if we're talking about one of the questions was, what are common challenges? So we have just to list out some of the common challenges. One of them being, restrictions, right? Just being unable to do what you feel like you want to do, right? Like I can't go gather with people or, you know, there's so many different restrictions that people have had.
Yeah, you can't-
Emotion. I was just gonna say, emotions is another one we mentioned. You know, emotions kind of overwhelming and being out of your control at times, or feeling like I'm not asking you to feel this way, and I don't know how to get rid of it, but I'm feeling this really strongly.
Yeah. In-person connection.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Motivation and energy,
Yeah.
I think for people has
Lack of
been
routine, like Chris said.
lack of routine. Yeah.
Just stresses, even financially, for like, or just stress with that lack of routine, or the routine being disrupted, or not having external supports like you might, or daycare for the kids, or outlets for teenagers and such. I think that affects it all.
I'll also toss in there just kind of a general instability, whether that's with here, like with government, or with we had restrictions upon restrictions in the summertime. You know, we had a stay-at-home order plus a curfew because of fear of violence in the streets. You know, it's like, oh, you know, so much just to be afraid of going outside, and then you have the murder hornets. So gosh, you got that problem too.
Add that to the mix, yeah.
Add that to the mix. So many things, and then we had the fires. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So many things kind of holding us back in this last year that were.
Well, Australia started with the fires.
Yeah.
Remember that? That was a year ago.
That's wild. Right.
So
Let's see. Yes, the common challenges. I will also, interpersonal. So there's certainly the interpersonal stuff regarding people who are, you know, missing their friends, missing seeing people. But then there's also the folks who are maybe at home and having a hard time with the people that they're with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So there's certainly some of that, and if we're talking about, you know, what I've seen with clients, that's certainly something that's come up more than once. Is whoa, I'm having a hard time with this much closeness, this much togetherness time, and you know, really miss having space from that.
Yeah, you mentioned Ryan before, or sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Oh, it's just some home environments aren't the easiest. Not just you getting kind of tired, or, you know, butting heads with the people in your, you know, close proximity, but it's just hard when there's not that outlet for kids to go to school, and some home environments aren't the healthiest. And so that is hard too, knowing like the interpersonal violence, really, so to speak. But
It's true. Yeah, a lot of these families function very well by not spending a ton of time together. They're all ships passing the wind, or lots of, obviously there's school and people are off at work and different hobbies and interests and stuff like that. So now you're forced to spend all this time together and really had to hash that out, you know, try to sink or swim in terms of your communication and connection with important people in your life.
Absolutely. And I, you know, remember back when people would take vacations and come back after a week with their family and be like, woo, or the holidays, spending time at home for the holidays, be like, yeah, okay, I made it through. That was kind of rough. You know, now it's been 9.5 months. How's that going?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that could be tough for sure. What about ways that people have persevered? You know, let's actually, Brooke, what do you mean by persevere in this case?
Well, there's been a lot of adversity, right, throughout this year. So, in what ways have we made it through? Like, what has been helpful for persons to excel? It's not really even excelling, but like managing or find joy or hope, or make it, you know, anything that keeps you afloat or better. It's something that doesn't sink you. How did people do that this year?
Yeah.
And were there themes to that?
Yeah, I am impressed by our clients or everybody's capacity to adapt.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible, like that resiliency. When faced with hardship, we find ways to kind of navigate through it. And maybe it's not the prettiest with negative ways of coping, but I think overall, based on what I've been observing, it's also been very positive. People have had to kind of recreate their lives and had to find new ways to help enhance their interpersonal connections and help with the emotional regulation and finding meaning and purpose.
There we go. Yes. I think going back to the the emotions being overwhelming topic there. I think folks that I've known who have done who've recognized an increase in emotion and felt overwhelmed and overextended with that at times, both find a way to have a healthy outlet for those emotions, like expression of those emotions through creativity or talking, or really opening up in therapy and really having a place and time to give those emotions some space, and also have a way to kind of contain that. I've heard more mention of stoicism this year than most other years. People talking about trying to find ways to lean on the logical and the rational at sometimes. Not ignoring the emotional side, but saying, okay, once I've given my emotions their time to express and to be heard, now I need to go back to what makes sense for me.
Yeah.
And so there's been that kind of containment, I guess, of emotion in that way.
No, that's great. Yeah. I've noticed a bit more gratitude in terms of the positive things that we do have control over. Also another big theme too, noticed a lot of compassion. So trying to give people a boost or ease their suffering. So a lot of altruism. Notice those themes popping up in our community, which has been pretty amazing.
Or even also, Chris, just with the gratitude, just grateful for what people have. I think it's a big year for a lot of not being able to do certain things or going certain places, but it's being thankful for what we do have already. Appreciating people, appreciating different things. So
yeah, I agree. Like, this conversation's come up quite a few times, is, oh my goodness, I'm not going to take that for granted again. Is it, it could be family get-togethers or just going out and meeting with some friends for a coffee, or that phrase has come up quite a few times.
I'd say another form of that is also activism. There's been a lot of, we talk a lot about how things are out of your control, but finding out what you can control or where you can make some impact or some influence. Certainly altruism is a part of that, but another part of that might be activism and being like, I had more clients this year who were saying, yeah, I'm gonna make phone calls to my government, or I'm going to to march in a parade or do something to get me feeling like I can take some control over something in my life,
Good
and
point.
be invested in something.
Yeah, I know there's a lot to this, Ryan, but yeah, it's pretty amazing as Canadians observing the Americans and how involved people have become politically. Like, isn't it like millions more people, for instance, participated in this past presidential election, right?
Right. Yeah.
Isn't some ridiculous, like 3/4 of those who could actually vote did vote?
It's something like that. Some
Wow.
massive number. Yeah. I mean,
Massive
definitely the
number.
most of all time. Yeah, it was a huge turnout. And a lot of that's because people were encouraging. I mean, every time there's an election, people say, hey, get out there and vote. But this time people were actually, writing postcards or making phone calls or, going door to door, whatever they needed to do to get people to actually vote. So it was a big one.
Yeah, and the decisions being made were really impacting people's lives, right?
Right.
On a state level and national level. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just full part of that. I think it's this is something that very few things we can say that this has affected everyone in one way or another, right? So there's a sense of connectedness in that, like we can all relate in our own ways, and we are all being impacted in our own ways, and some similarities and some differences, but we're all in this together is kind of a big theme that has come through this year. The ups, the downs, all the rounds, let's get through this, and trying to pick people up when they're losing hope or they're getting discouraged, and it's okay, like we got this won't be forever, and so it's anyone will know, everyone will remember what it was like to be through that pandemic, and we haven't had that in my life anyways.
Yeah,
very true.
I'm curious, will it lead to a kind of a zest for life? We're having a conversation earlier today about the roaring 20s, 1920s, World War finished, and there was this awful Spanish flu and a quarantine for 2 years, and then propelled people into this, what they called roaring 20s, right? So maybe it's going to happen again 100 years later. People are going to, when we're able to, we're going to really engage in life and hopefully get that balance back in a big way.
Chris, I hope so. I really do. The optimist in me says yes. I hope that does happen. People stop taking things for granted and really make the most of life. The pessimist or the cynic in me says maybe it's just today, but I feel like people have a pretty short attention span or pretty short memory when it comes to a lot of these things, and I sort of feel like, gosh, when things return to normal or whatever that looks like, I don't know. I think we might forget it. I think there'll still be nostalgia for this time, but I think people get caught back up in the rat race again. At least Americans.
Even that sounds amazing to me. We could put this behind us, and it won't become the pandemic kind of ends. That sounds pretty great. We can just move on and not have it in the front of our minds anymore. That would be pretty cool.
Well, that would be pretty nice. What do you think is going to help people move through the next few months? And Brooke, I'm assuming you're talking about, as we've got a vaccine, as things are starting to open up, as we're nearing a year mark of this, right?
Everything that goes with it, right? We're not out of the woods yet, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but the tunnel is still long. And I think that there's going to be big emotions that come up through those months. There's still going to be anger of why are certain restrictions potentially, or how come, or there's still going to be a lot of death that happens, unfortunately. And everything that comes with it, right? I think that the next few months are going to be really interesting. Like, by few months, I mean like 6-9 months.
Yeah. No, I think follow the science, right? This is a really interesting age where there's a lot of information out there. And so when it comes to vaccination programs, they're only successful when a certain amount of people actually get them, right? So do your research, but make sure it's from a really good source. Because I think that's going to be a big topic coming up here soon as these vaccinations become more readily accessible.
I've found here, and maybe this is my cynicism towards my fellow Americans, but as soon as things start to lighten up a little bit, everyone gets really eager to say, okay, it's over, right? Like following those,
waiting for that. Yeah.
Like give it an inch, run a mile, or take a mile type thing.
Exactly. Once there's a little sign of okay, things are improving, because this happened in June, this happened in October. Both of those times things were starting to lighten up a little bit, and then people went kind of haywire. Woo, it's over. And then things got worse again. And I think we have a real hard time with delaying gratification. It's we're kind of black and white when it comes to that. We have a hard time with dealing with gray areas, and I think that's human nature in a lot of ways. But I think we in the States maybe are a little more challenged in that area. So I guess I would say, if there was some sort of advice, it would be just slow down. Slow down, take it easy. Maybe have the phrase abundance of caution has been used a lot this last year. Please actually do have an abundance of caution, and maybe be an err on the side of caution instead of taking those extra risks.
Yeah, we've done so well. I know there's a lot of people that have been struggling, and there's been a lot of death and loss, but we kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? So I really like that message, Ron. Just a bit more patience, perseverance, as Brooke mentioned too. And maybe we can all get through this together.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. Like, I think that it's going to be we have to kind of like slowly lift and stretch back out. And if it happens too soon, I don't know what consequences that will have, but I feel that there will be consequences. And I keep thinking about like physical materials. Like, so if you were an artist and you had to stretch canvas, you're going to stretch canvas a little bit, and then you're going to keep it there for a little while, and then you're going to stretch it a little more, and then you'll keep it, and you keep stretching it out, right? Or I think that's how they stretch canvas. I'm not an artist, I wouldn't know this, but otherwise, if you do it too quickly, it's just going to rip.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
Or a balloon or anything, right? So I'm just thinking physical material. If you stretch it or try to bend it, wood, if you're trying to bend wood, you have to do it slowly and consistently, and otherwise it's going to snap. And yeah, I don't know what the consequence the snap would be for us, but I think we have to be slow and steady and intentional. Slow, steady, and intentional. So
pizza dough. If you stretch that out too quickly, it'll rip. You have a big old hole in the middle of it. It's no good.
that's a great one. I just made pizza the other night. Yeah.
No, but the point's well taken there, Brooke. Absolutely. Yes. We have to be slow and intentional about this. That's a hard thing though, right? I mean, we have, as psychology people, we know about the Marshmallow Test. We know that we're not, as human beings, we're not all wired to take things slow and easy. We want it now, right?
Yeah.
And that's difficult. We've already mentioned the Marshmallow Test, I think, before, but just in brief, it's just this idea that, if people are given a choice between having something that they want right now or waiting a little bit of time in order to have more of that same thing, more good things, a lot of people will tend to just take it right now. I'll take a less now because I just want it. And I have a hard time delaying my gratification. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lots of benefits to those who wait, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious too. People have adapted, and of course we're meeting through Zoom, and Zoom is, wish we bought some stock in Zoom last year around this time. My goodness,
Oh my
where these
gosh.
virtual platforms has kind of changed how we connect, right?
Mhm.
So I'm kind of curious to see how that shifts and changes as COVID or the pandemic continues to improve.
Yep.
And stay tuned. Of course, we'll take it step by step and try to figure it out along with you.
Yeah, I think in general, it's just check in with yourself and others. I think without COVID, there's always the post-holiday blues sometimes, right?
Mhm.
I think people look forward to Christmas. It's a time of celebrating, and I know this year was different in its own way, but it was still something special amongst kind of a year that has been really hard. So I think just, as the new year comes and we're still in this for a little while, and it's just take care of yourself and kind of check in to see what you need, because I think already it can be a hard time of year for some people.
And maybe make it a deal to check in with each other too, right? Maybe that's something as a resolution you can kind of spread around your bubble, whether that's friends or family or whoever's with you. Like, hey guys, let's all check in on each other to make sure we're doing okay during this time. Because really, it's the cumulative effect of 9+ months of this is, we don't even know what that does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We don't even know what that's going to do. We don't know what the hangover from this is going to be when we do reach the end of the tunnel. We don't know. And so we got to get each other's back and be, as you Adlarians would like to say, very pro-social, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those creative outlets kind of pop into my mind too. Like, eventually life will go back to normal, we hope, based on what we've been hearing. So what can you focus on right now that you won't be able to focus on later once life kind of goes back to the whole idea of normal?
It's true.
So
that's it. Well, guys, this is a wrap for 2020.
New Year's edition.
New Year's edition. Hey, one thing I'm grateful for this year, 2020 did give us the opportunity to start a podcast.
Sure
Sure
did.
did. Yep.
So thank you guys for doing this with me. Let's keep
Thanks
doing
for
it
the
in
idea.
2021.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no problem. No problem. It's been fun. We'll keep doing it. So that's a wrap. 2020. Like and subscribe on Apple, Google, Podbean, Audible, or YouTube. Send your questions to info@mentalhealthbootcamp.com. Visit us on Facebook or Instagram. Tell a friend. Tell any friend you know named Olaf, and then we'll see if we get more likes and more listeners that way. And Happy New Year's, everybody. Have a great year.
Happy New Year.
Have a better
Happy
2021.
New Year. Bye now.
Bye.